Hey, this is Shaun with the Atlanta Tennis Podcast, powered by Go Tennis. Check out our calendar of Metro Atlanta tennis events at letsgotennis.com. And if you're a fan of Bull Shark Sports, go to shop.letsgotennis.com. Get yourself a hoodie or a hat. Also, we want to hear from you. We want to hear your story on the podcast. So if you have a story to share, they're starting to come in now, and we're really excited about it. And I love reading these stories because it's so personal, yet it's fun and it's public. Tennis is the social Atlanta is the social tennis kingdom of the world. I mean, we have more social tennis going on here than anybody, and we want to share those stories. So go to letsgotennis.com/my story, and you might have your story featured on the Atlanta Tennis Podcast. Today, this is Youth Sports Talk with Coach Ben Hestley. Today's talk attempts to answer the question, how young is too young for sports? Ben, ready to get started talking youth sports?
Yeah, man, let's knock this one out of the park.
Ooh, I like the reference. All right, today's conversation is asking the question, hopefully answering the question, how young is too young to start playing whatever? Soccer, baseball, tennis, basketball. So Ben, can we start with, are there different starting ages for different sports, maybe certain skill sets? Where do you want to start here, Ben?
Yeah, we can do that. I think first of all is just kind of lay out, we're talking about organized sports versus unorganized play-at-home type sports.
Good
right?
point.
And we obviously, those of you who watch our show know that Shaun and I both are really big on play-at-home activities, getting out in the backyard or even in the driveway or living room, playing catch with your kids, shooting hoops with your kids, playing soccer in the backyard with your kids. Those sorts of things that will go a long way as they develop and get older and get more into organized sports. So I think a jumping off point is just kind of tell a quick story. I was at an event recently, and I was talking to this guy. You know how it is, Shaun. You're at these sort of social events, and you're at the bar, and then as soon as people know what you do for a living, right, they immediately start wanting to get some quote unquote free advice about their kid, right? So the guy says to me, "Hey, I got my kids start taking tennis lessons. I really want my son to play tennis. I think tennis is going to be his sport." I said, "Okay, cool. Well, how old is he?" He said, "He's 3."
Oh,
So immediately I couldn't even help myself. Maybe I have a couple drinks, it's Friday night, I'm a little loose. And I literally had my mouth, because I usually have a good filter. I said, "Why are you doing that?" Like, just like that. And I look, my wife she kind of starts, I could see her like
she's
push
leaving.
back from the conversation because she knows this, not going well. And he's kind of looks at me, he's like, "What do you mean?" I said, "Yeah, why is your 3-year-old taking tennis lessons?" Like, so we can start there because that's
Right.
what gave me the idea for this topic today.
Yeah, so my wife and I, have both given lessons to 3-year-olds. It's extremely difficult, and we are professionals at giving tennis lessons to children of that age. Now, there are very few of us, people like us, coaches like us, even fewer. So if you find somebody willing to do that, willing to give a tennis lesson for 20 to 30 minutes, and help your 3-year-old, I love that you found that coach. My guess is it's probably not the right coach, and that coach does not love the idea. They simply said yes for the $50. But from a coaching point of view at that age, your child, in my opinion, I'm guessing Ben agrees with me here, your child is so much better served with 5 minutes a day at home with a tennis racket and you, mom and dad, than expensive or even affordable, whatever, than paid tennis lessons with a tennis coach because of the investment there. You got to get him, you got to take him there. Your 3-year-old's too distracted. We have to figure out how to get rid of the parent, and then the kid cries for 5 minutes, and it's a butterfly, and they're running around. It's just not really very often an efficient use of your time or your money or that coach's time, to be honest. So it's so much more beneficial for that child Give them a few minutes at home. You can do it. We've had conversations about playing with your own kids, and you can do this at home. There's no special skill of letting the kid whack a tennis ball with a tennis racket in your house as long as you don't mind repainting the walls every few years.
Well, which is precisely what's going to happen in this lesson, right? Like you said, most coaches that would take a 3-year-old are not any good because, like you just said, they're just doing it for the money anyways, right? Rather than giving the parent an honest answer, some honest feedback and suggestions on how to start that child in sport. So what the lesson looks like, as I talk to this parent, what the lesson looks like is what you would expect, right? He's 3. He needs basic athletic skills, basic movement skills.
We've had
But
that
what happens?
conversation a lot.
The coach wants to teach him the four. You know what Dad said? Dad even said, "You should see his forehand. You see his forehand." So I'm like, well, yeah, no kidding. You can. I mean, I could train my dog to hit a forehand if I just drop the ball in front of him 1,000 times. But there's no real skill there. What actually happens is the coach is working harder than the kid you know? And so it's like you hear a story. I used to hear Wayne Brown, I don't know how much truth this is, but Wayne Brown used to say how he duct tape a ping pong pallet to the boys' hands so they could learn how to rally, when they were still in the crib, And I'm like, how much benefit did that really have? And I think he was being a little bit facetious, but there are programs for kids at the 2 and 3-year-old age. My son did one. It's called Play Ball. It's a great program, but
Yeah.
it's basically like you're talking. It's running around. Like I remember watching a class. Actually, it wasn't a class. We hired them to run a birthday party when he was 3. He turned 3. We hired the group that did his program at school at his daycare to do a birthday party for him. And they're doing they're hitting balloons. They're doing you remember the parachute in PE class where they throw the parachute, you have to run under and run back out. Like it's stuff like they put little hula hoops out. They got to hop through like bunnies. It's stuff like that. It's like your basic movement skills, right? Which you talked about before. It's running around. It's climbing, sliding down the slide. It's catching a big ball, or taking the where you rally the balloon, right? You get kids in groups and I tap the balloon, you tap the balloon. That's what tennis is at 3 years old. Okay, it's not a kid with a racket and a coach drop balls to them so they can learn how to hit the perfect, insert player here type forehand.
I've got a great play ball story, if you don't mind a quick tangent, because I started a company in 2010 that competed with play ball called Ankle Biters Tennis. And we did
Oh
3 and
yeah,
under, 3, 4, 5-year-old tennis in the preschools. And play ball, I agree. It's great for what it is. It does its thing. And my brother at one point had a daughter of the right age to play. And we were watching at one point one of the play ball classes that they were having. And they had about 12 3-year-olds lined up on the side of a building up against a brick wall. And it was one coach for 12 kids, which is not a good idea, by the way. And they went in and they had this bucket of water and these sponges, and they would throw the sponge to the kid, one of those sponge balls, right, that you play with in the pool. And they would
yeah.
throw the ball to the kid to get him to play. It was a summer thing. It was hot. And I love the idea. I really do. But 9 out of 12 of these kids simply just took a wet sponge right in the face. And
Yeah.
it just went just right in their face and drilled them. And a couple of them are crying. And the coach is trying to figure out what to do. And my brother looks over and he says, "Hey, Shaun, we should change your tagline for your business to Ankle Biters Tennis. It's better than a wet sponge in the face." we just died laughing because at the time it seemed like we were better. But in reflection, remember the story you told previously about the one parent or the one coach yelling the thing that you didn't understand at the time. And now
Yeah.
you look back and you say, you know what? But that's what's fun for the kids. At that point, when you're 3, sometimes they just need to take a wet sponge in the face on a hot summer day rather than some coach saying, "Follow through, kid, follow through." It's just, it needs to be fun and it needs to be generic athleticism, in our opinion. Agreed?
Yeah. Well, and if you're only going to take so many sponges to the face until you finally figure out how to
Or
pick
you
your
figure out
hands
how to
up
catch
and
it.
catch it. It's like the joke about the baby who's learning how to walk, and she falls over and goes, "Well, maybe this walking thing isn't for me."
Forget it. I'm out of
You
here.
know, Like, they got to keep. Now, I'm not saying like I've told stories about how, a kid's very short term career in baseball because dad takes him out with a glove and a hard 5-ounce baseball and chucks it at him and hits him in the face. Now, that's not going to go well. But if you have a nice sponge ball with some water in it, it's 95 degrees outside in Atlanta, and
Fun.
you get hit in the, oh, it's fun. Ah, it's funny, you know? And
Yeah.
then eventually they'll learn to catch it, I've had lots of instances like that with kids, that, a kickball or big softball like you're talking about, so like foam ball like you're talking about,
Mhm.
getting hit, and they laugh about it.
And I think
Um,
that's a great thing for a kid to understand is we make a distinction with what we do with tennis for children. Ankle biters tennis became ankle biters extracurriculars, and now it's become tennis for children. And we explain to the kids, we say, don't hit the ball with your face. And so when the ball comes and it bounces off their face, what does the kid naturally do? They say, oh, you hit me in the face with a tennis ball. And I say, no, I didn't. You tried to hit the ball with your face. And I've taught you better than that. You did this to yourself. And if a kid can realize that, I think they can become a better athlete because they're going to realize what happens out there is up to them. They're going to learn that spatial awareness to get out of the way of an oncoming object. But a 3-year-old doesn't have that yet. They're not there yet.
no, and
And
then
in the
yeah,
same way, my professional soccer coach brother-in-law said at one point, we asked, when can he start playing soccer? And he said, as soon as he can walk properly, he can start kicking a ball around. Well, okay, he can kind of walk properly. Right now, he's as recording, he's 19 months old. I don't know if I'd call that walking properly, but he's going to kick a little tennis ball. And as long as we don't take it seriously, I call that starting soccer. But I don't need a 3 and under soccer team to get it
right.
started.
And that's where we draw the line right there, right? Is that there's two things at play. One, if you sign your kid up for lessons at 3 years old, they're going to be and I'm talking tennis,
Mhm.
right? They're going to be in a very thick. I mean, I'll see even baseball and softball. They're in a very fixed environment, which means it's going to be very coach control. Like what you're talking about is the coach is setting the environment, right? I've got the foam balls, or I've got Gio's got his little soccer ball. He's kicking around the house. Like you set the stage and then let him work through the scenario. So you're really a facilitator. Whereas if you're in a organized private tennis lesson as a 3-year-old, I mean, that's going to be a very coach centered situation. I got to fix this. I got to make sure his technique, whatever that could be at 3, is right. And that what's going to happen is you spend all this money for your kid to look good, but he can't play. You know, I mean, I remember when I worked for USTA and I was one of the coaches helping with the player development camps. These kids are good. Like their player development, their kids playing tournaments, they're looking to play college, they're going to play pro. And I was just one of the coaches at the summer camp. And Jose Higueras was our main guy. Like he was our he wasn't our boss. We had another boss, but he was the big national guy that came down from USTA and kind of spoke to us. I remember him saying, he said, these American players, they know how to hit they can hit, he said, they can hit the hell out of a tennis ball, but they have no clue how to tennis. And that's what you're going to get with a 3-year-old. The 3-year-old can hit the ball as long as the coach or parent dropping it perfectly in their strike zone.
It's in the right
But can
place.
they actually go out and rally and play a tennis match? You know, and
No.
soccer is a little different because you can start earlier. I mean, yeah, as soon as they walk, you could put a ball in front of them, they start kicking it around. But soccer, you can kind of play soccer at that young age because I mean, soccer is a tough sport to be good at, but it's not a hard sport to get started with.
Mhm.
You're just a bunch of kids kicking the ball. Usually there's one rock star on each team that sort of takes over the game, and that's kind of how the rest of it's a big mosh pit of kids. And then the
Yep.
all-star comes, flying out with the ball and scores.
Yep.
That's typical. That's your typical, 4 and 5-year-old soccer experience. But kind of last pieces is like, I think sometimes as parents we see that I have like three blames that I'll put in what struck me and just struck a chord with me when this parent asked me this question at this event is I blame three things. I blame number one social media, right? I mean, I see stuff all the time. I mean, I saw I mean, they even tagline it as a 1 year, 1 month old hitting it. Look at this. Look at this. They even say, why don't you say 2? He's almost 2, right? He's probably 2 tomorrow, right? But you had to clearly specifically state this child is 1 years, 11 months old, and look at his forehand. Look at how well he can hit, right? And so you see that, you sort of take that out of context. You see as a parent, like, oh my God, this kid too, and he can play tennis. And my kid's 18 months and he can barely walk, you
Mhm.
know? I mean, my kid's 3 years old and they can't even go to the bathroom by themselves. It's like, oh, I got to get going here. So social media, and then like you're keeping up with the Joneses, right? You're keeping up with the Jones, like, oh, and I can tell you so many times in my career, I've had parents come to me, and this happened especially in the country club environment, is you go, oh, I want Sarah to take some lessons with you. And you're looking for, okay, why is Sarah interested in lesson? Well, Sarah's interested because what you want to hear is like, you're a good coach and we think you can help Sarah. Or you want
That'd
to
be
you
nice.
hear like, hey, she's really tennis has really kind of struck a chord with her and she's got the tennis bug. We want to give her some lessons. Maybe she can see how good she can get, whatever. That's kind of the typical parent answer. But a lot of times you hear like, well, no, her friend Anna takes lessons, and so we want Sarah to take lessons too, because like, like, so you're just taking a lesson because, and this is totally different from like, I want to play tennis because my friends play tennis. It's like, I want to, if they do something, I got to do the same thing, right? Or if they get something, I got to get something better, right? So you have that issue to blame. And then the last one is like what I call the senseless common sense, right? Which may be where this parent's going. It's like, hey, Sean's kid started tennis when he was 5, and he ended up playing in college. So if I start my kid at 3, that's 2 years before Sean's kid, and look how good Sean's kid got. So guess how I can only imagine how good my kid's going to get if he has 2 years earlier of experience than the kid who went D1 college tennis. Like, that's the thought process of some parents, and you're like, that's completely off base. Like, that's complete. I mean, I see where your brain's going, but that's completely senseless. There's so many more variables to development than what you're thinking.
Apples and oranges. Isn't that the
Totally.
simplest way to consider it? Apples and oranges. You're comparing
Totally. I mean,
things that are
everybody's
different.
different. Everybody's different. I mean, I have, and I it's all the time. I have no better development case study than my neighborhood. I have my son who's 12. Our next door neighbor is the same age, same birth date, same age. They were even born at the same hospital. Okay. Live next door to each other. So same neighborhood, same school, same social environment for the most part, right? They even play on the same baseball team for 3 seasons. They couldn't be different kids.
Mhm.
Completely different kids, completely different skill sets, completely different interests at this point in their life. So just take that from my experience. You got 2 kids, both boys, same exact birth date, they literally live next door to each other, right? Couldn't be 2 different people. Great kids, they're good friends, they get along very well, but they're different people, you know? So don't think every kid's going to be the same. And don't think just because your 3-year-old is not on social media whacking tennis balls that you're falling behind.
Agreed. I agree. And I think that's the statement we needed to make today, which is there isn't too young, in my opinion. Let your kid run around whacking tennis balls with a tennis racket. Eventually that
Yeah, it's
translates to baseball.
unorganized, right? Let's be clear.
Unorganized.
Don't
Exactly.
need to
We
go
let
sign your
him.
kid up for 2-year-old soccer lessons
Correct. Correct.
or
It's
the yeah.
free to do it yourself. It's free. Yes, we're tennis coaches. We're fitness people here in the house. So he's going to have a head start because we're going to let him run around with a tennis ball and smash into the walls. And we're going to let those things happen because we enjoy it. And he's going to get a lot of that. He's going to kick the ball and he's going to bounce a basketball and he's going to be throwing his tennis ball at grandma. We're going to get upset with him. Those things are going to happen. But signing him up for something, put that off, in our opinion, I think is what we're saying, right, Ben?
Yeah, the exploration is so important in any age, but really the young age. Let them explore. Let them figure things out. You know, let them expose them to physical activity And then, you got time, guys. You got time. They're not out of your hands till 18, maybe longer. So you got plenty of time to help them develop as people and as athletes.
Exactly. I appreciate it, Ben. This has been Youth Sports Talk with Coach Ben Hestley. Thank you, sir. We'll see you next week.
Hey, it's always fun going on tangents with you, Shaun.
That's going to be the title of the next one. Tangents. Only tangents.
All
Thanks,
right.
Ben. See you next week.
All right, man.